Is Universal's Epic Universe about to change the way that we wait in line forever? Hey Pugh crew, welcome back.
If you're new here, on this channel we talk about all things theme parks, including updates, news, and even tips and tricks for your next theme park vacation. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the last few years, we have seen Universal implement several virtual features, such as virtual lines, mobile ordering, and more. And with construction well underway at their newest park, Epic Universe, it got us wondering, will Epic Universe be a virtual line only park?
Universal's journey with virtual lines started in 2017 with the opening of Racer New York starring Jimmy Fallon. This ride, which opened in April, was the first attraction to have a virtual-only queue. Just like how the attraction currently operates, this ride did not have a standby line like most attractions in the park, and guests were required to reserve a virtual line through Universal's mobile app. The virtual line system was fairly well received by guests, and it did a good job of keeping the wait times at bay.
Universal's next implementation of the virtual line happened just 1 month later with the opening of Volcano Bay in May of 2017. However, there were some key changes to the virtual line system. You no longer use your phone to get the virtual line because phones and water slides probably don't mix.
No.
But they introduced a system known as Tapu Tapu. Similar to Disney's Magic Bands, but way more fun to say. When guests enter the park, they are given a bracelet which allows them to do several things throughout the parks, such as purchase food and merchandise, and even rent lockers. However, the most important and biggest purpose of the Tapu Tapu bracelets is to reserve those virtual lines.
All guests have to do to reserve a virtual line at Volcano Bay is tap their interactive wristband at the totem pole located at the ride's entrance. Then their wristband will notify them when it's their turn to ride. This system has been widely successful in Volcano Bay, but there is one major drawback to note. The biggest issue with the tap to ride system is that you can only reserve one virtual line at a time. If you go up to another ride and scan your interactive bracelet,
Magdoll will appear in your bedroom.
it'll automatically remove your previous reservation.
That's not nearly as bad.
So, although you don't have to physically wait in line, you can't schedule several rides at once, which limits how much you can get done in one day. Universal has also tested virtual lines at some of their most popular attractions like Despicable Me Minion Mayhem, Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts, and Skull Island Reign of Kong. And they even used a mobile reservation system for the HHN houses that they opened to daytime guests in 2020. But their most recent testing, and probably the most interesting, is at Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. Prior to this, all of the virtual lines in both Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure occurred through Universal's mobile app. But this new system, implemented in July of 2021, occurs on a completely different website. On this website, guests are prompted to enter their email address as well as the number of guests in their party before selecting a return time. But what's interesting is you also have to turn on location services before you can make your reservation. So now that we have some background on Universal's history with virtual lines, what does that mean for Epic Universe? Well, if there's one thing we've learned, it's that everything Universal does has a reason.
Not to be confused with reasonable. Just kidding. I love you. Call us.
The parks at Universal are laid out the way that they are for a specific reason. The food kiosks are located where they are for a reason, and the ride queues are becoming more themed and more interactive for a reason. And Universal has been testing these different virtual line systems for a reason.
And there is a reason that Anna said reason 11 times in that last clip. And it's because the new virtual line system that they are using with Hagrid's just doesn't seem like something they're just trying to implement with Hagrid's. It definitely seems like it's planned for something bigger, like they're trying to do something else with it. And it just makes sense that that would be Epic Universe. Something else that makes us think that this is all some big almost test for Epic Universe is the fact that they're making you turn on your location services. Sure, you do have to turn on location services to use the current mobile app if you're trying to book a virtual line, but we think this website might be Universal's way of collecting a little bit more data on their guest. No, we don't think Universal's using the website to spy on you. Actually, they might be, but it's probably not in the way that you're worried about, and actually it might be that too. But they are probably just using it for data, maybe. No, seriously, like they need the data to see how to build the park as they're constructing it, and they can make it a little bit easier to get around by collecting some of these movement tendencies.
There's been some similar speculation with Volcano Bay's Tapu Tapu bracelets, with people wondering why they chose to implement the system and if Universal is using the wristbands to track people's habits in the parks. Because ultimately, Universal's goal is to make more money.
No.
And the way that you make more money is by making people want to be in the parks. So all of this could just be a way for Universal to get more information and improve their operations.
And it definitely makes sense to collect data from multiple locations. Universal and Islands of Adventure, those are totally different layouts, so collecting data from those two places makes sense. You can see the movements based on how the parks are laid out. And of course, Volcano Bay is laid out entirely different than those two parks. So yeah, it's just another data point that they can use to make better decisions.
Neither Universal Studios or Islands of Adventure were designed with virtual queues in mind because they were built so long ago.
Easy.
But Epic Universe is Universal's chance to create an entire theme park that is optimized for virtual lines and make guest experiences that much better. One of the biggest concerns and complaints from people that are visiting theme parks is wait times. So if Universal can create a theme park that minimizes the amount of time that you stand in line, it seems like that would be a huge draw for people that are considering a theme park vacation.
Yeah, and we think that's exactly what Universal is doing with Epic Universe. They're trying to expand their footprint and become an even bigger competitor in the world of theme parks. And if you can improve guest satisfaction by implementing a virtual line, then you're probably gonna do that. It just makes sense. Something else that makes sense is Universal implementing this, like we said, it keeps people out of lines. You know what you can do when you're out of lines? You can spend more time in the parks, meaning that you can spend more money in the parks. You can actually purchase things instead of waiting in line. You can't buy a wand from Ollivanders standing in Hagrid's 3-hour line. You can if it's a virtual line, so this all around makes a lot of sense for theme parks. So the big question is whether or not we think this is the direction that Epic Universe will head, and in my opinion, absolutely. I think this is very likely for Epic Universe. It just makes too much sense all the way around. Universal's making more money. I can't imagine how much more money they can make on Butterbeer from just me if I'm not waiting in line for anything. And also, one of the biggest complaints from guests when they leave on the exit surveys is that they waited in line for too long. Do we think this will be implemented at the other two parks? Not immediately or not anytime in the near future. Like we said, those parks weren't built with this in mind, and those queues that they use, like those extended queues, those are part of their capacity, so it would take some finagling in order to get those adjusted for this, but I absolutely think this is probably the future for Epic Universe.
I also agree that this is the direction that Universal is heading with its future theme parks, and for me, I think Volcano Bay is what really sealed the deal. The Tapu Tapu system has worked out really well at that park, and it's still in place. They haven't recalled it. They haven't really had any major issues, and none of those rides have a standby line. So I definitely think that this is the direction Universal is headed with the future parks, and eventually Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure will catch up. We do want to mention that even if Epic Universe does follow Volcano Bay and all of their rides are virtual only, that doesn't mean that we're not going to get like awesome in-depth ride queues. A lot of people think that virtual lines mean that you're not going to wait at all, and that's just not the case. We've had several instances where we had a virtual line for Hagrid's and we still waited like 30 or 40 minutes to ride it.
Yeah, so you get a virtual line that's like 2 hours out or whatever, and then you wait 30 minutes, that's really not that bad. It's better than waiting in line for 2.5 hours. Because like when we got that virtual queue, we were riding other rides, we were seeing shows, and that's what you would do at Epic Universe. You would get that virtual line and then go do something else.
So even though Universal may be trying to optimize your time spent in the parks, you're still going to see incredibly themed queues like we have with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Super Nintendo World in Japan, and even the Velocicoaster.
Alright guys, that wraps up today's video. Leave us a comment in the comment section and let us know, how many is too many?
If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. You can hit that subscribe button and turn on that bell notification so you get an alert every time we post a new video.
Thanks for watching, depending on what it is, too.